The church smelled terrible that one day, like weed and unwashed bodies and filthy clothing, all because of two visitors, random dudes off the street I'd never seen in my life. Both on one day, which in this tiny little town where everyone knows everyone, was unusual. One, sure, but two? I thought maybe they were together, but they were not. Just two lost souls who happened to find their way to our little church on the same morning. Weird. It got weirder. One of them recorded most of the service. He was super stoned, so I didn't worry too much about it. And except for filming without consent, his behavior was entirely appropriate. The other one, not so much. He was high on something way more exciting than weed, and he had no reservations about shouting out in the middle of the sermon or spontaneously playing the harmonica. All of this was far less disconcerting than when he actually pulled out a smoke in the middle of the sermon, and I wondered if I might have to interrupt myself to ask him not to light up in church. Thankfully, he was just using that cig as a fidget, which was fine as long as it brought him peace. During the actual passing of the peace, he tried to score some drugs from a church member who thankfully had none for sale that day, so disaster averted. The guy left church early, which was actually too bad because I really did want to invite him to stay for lunch. He kind of looked like he could use a meal. As it turns out, he hadn't gone very far. He had taken a Bible with him and gone outside to, in his words, spend some time with Isaiah. I don't know what passage he was reading, but I wonder if it might have been chapter 55, which begins, "Hear, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without price." Whether he was inspired by these words or by the need to return the borrowed Bible, the stranger returned to the church. Worship had ended, and I was walking out of the sanctuary holding the communion chalice. That thirsty traveler took one look at that cup, dropped to his knees, and said, "I want that." Isaiah could not have asked for a better response to his teaching, nor could I have asked for a better opportunity to follow Jesus' example of sharing a meal with someone who was not welcomed at the more respectable tables. So together we walked up to the communion table, we retrieved the bread of heaven, and we sat down in the stairwell next to the table for our own little communion. He understood the ritual. "I am forgiven," he said, "washed whiter than snow." That was arguable given the visible layer of dirt and grime covering his entire person, both clothing and skin. And his teardrop tattoo suggested that his life had not been lived entirely beyond reproach. And yet there we were, at the table of grace. We communed. All are welcome at the table. We know this, we say it, but do we mean it? Do we really believe that those people are welcome? You know the ones I mean, the ones you would not care to invite to your own personal dinner party. In our honesty, we all have at least one category of person we might not feel totally comfortable inviting to our own table. We hear the story of Jesus dining with tax collectors and other sinners too wretched to even name, and we hear how the religious authorities of his time, the Pharisees, criticized Jesus for keeping such terrible company. We think smugly that we would have been so much more gracious than those uptight fuss budgets. No problem with a few tax collectors and random sinners as long as Jesus is the one doing the inviting. But what if those sinners were the very people you didn't like to be around and Jesus invited them to crash your dinner party? We know the social norms. We live inside a system of caste, whether we call it that or not. Certain types don't mix, and they prefer it that way. And honestly, it's not like the ones not getting invited are craving the experience of sitting at the table with people who dislike their company. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you realized, "I do not belong here"? It is so awkward. I've left social events early because of that feeling, and maybe you have too. What a relief to escape. But what if you can't? I recently watched a movie called The Way, in which a man named Tom finds himself walking El Camino de Santiago in memory of his son who perished during his very first day on the trail. So Tom, the father, determines to walk the 500-mile road for his son Daniel, alone except for his grief. One gets the sense that if he could avoid talking to anyone at all, he would, but he must stop now and then for sustenance, and the first time he does, he is shocked to find he has walked into a dinner party, a huge table set up outdoors, full of food and lots of laughing hikers. The host jumps up to greet him. "We've been expecting you." Tom is confused. Expecting him? How? You're a pilgrim, right? Walking El Camino. We feed pilgrims here. And Tom is ushered to his seat at that big table where he is surrounded by laughter and joy. In the breaking of bread, the wall around Tom's heart begins to break a little bit too. And as he softens, he imagines his son Daniel smiling at him from across the table, reminding him he does belong there. As theologian Frederick Buechner once wrote, "What we hunger for, perhaps more than anything else, is to be known in our full humanness, and yet that is often just what we also fear more than anything else." Why do we fear it? Perhaps it is our conditioning. Some of us have internalized the myth of rugged individualism. You know the story. The American hero, the Lone Ranger on his horse, the person who never asks anyone for help. It is a myth created by the Hollywood Westerns, but never supported by historical fact. Hear the truth. No one has ever thrived without community. This is ancient and biblical wisdom. Our second creation story from Genesis teaches us that the one thing Creator God deemed not good is that the human being should be alone. And the wise author of Ecclesiastes built upon the theme, saying, "If they fall, one will lift the other up, but woe to one who is alone and falls and doesn't have another to help." The feeling of loneliness and the fear of not belonging is hard to talk about, but it resonates deeply with us all. I think that's why we've all given our hearts to Punch, the infant monkey who was rejected by his mother at birth. Thanks to the interventions of the zookeepers, Punch survived, but he hungered for more than food. He needed a companion. Out of desperation, the zookeepers gave him a stuffed orangutan, which became his surrogate mother. It's tragic to watch videos of that poor little monkey trying to soothe himself with nothing but a stuffed toy. However, the good news is that some of the monkeys have begun reaching out to little Punch. Oh, he still drags around that stuffed orangutan, but he is also held in the arms of real monkeys who are overcoming their suspicion of the lonely infant and bringing him into community. I suspect that little Punch will continue dragging that orangutan around until it falls apart, but I hope that one day he'll learn to let go so he can reach out with both hands, knowing that he fully belongs. What do we hang on to instead of reaching out? Some of us cling to feelings of unworthiness, experiences that taught us we may not even be lovable. We might wall ourselves off to avoid the pain of rejection. Let go of that story and come to the table. You belong. Some of us cling to the things that keep us too busy for true connection. We have to work, we don't have time, other things are more important. Let go of that story and come to the table. You belong. Some of us hold tightly to our fears of others. We don't trust people we don't understand, people of different races or cultures, even different ideologies or different generations. We're afraid they will change everything and we will not feel safe anymore. Let go of that story and come to the table. You belong. Some of us have simply learned to keep to ourselves and we've grown accustomed to it. Being around people is hard because you have to compromise, hear other ideas, and adapt to other preferences. We get used to our loneliness, and it isn't so bad, really. We can do it alone. Let go of that story and come to the table. You belong. By age 11, I was in desperate need of this lesson. In under 2 years, we had made 3 moves, and constantly being the new kid had destroyed my self-confidence. I felt like I did not and could not belong, and I was terrified of starting junior high as the new kid again. I was 2,000 miles away from home, and I knew no one. So once I'd lined my books up on the shelf and arranged my stuffed animals on the bed, I had literally nothing to do but wait the rest of that hot, dreadful summer for school to begin. Until the day someone knocked on my door, and it was a girl my age with her little sister. And it turns out their daddy had met my daddy through work, and so they were supposed to come and meet me, and did I want to come over? They lived just up the street. Well, It was clear that this was an arranged friendship, forced upon them as much as on me, but what else did I have? I swallowed what little pride I had and I walked home with those girls. And the first thing I noticed in their house was the huge kitchen table where their mother and grandmother were chatting in animated Spanish, and I was introduced, and within seconds I was being invited to dinner, and wouldn't I also go out with them on their sailboat later that evening? And just like that, I was wrapped in a cloud of love and friendship that didn't care whether I would be cool or popular, I would not, or whether I would be able to advance anyone's social standing. If anything, I was a bit of a liability with my Kmart clothes and my Midwestern accent. But there at Mama Norma's table, none of that mattered. I was welcome. Everyone was welcome. I'm pretty sure I stretched my welcome to the limit, stopping in every afternoon after school on my way home from the bus stop, but it didn't seem that strange. In fact, because someone else was always there having coffee with Norma at the kitchen table. Old friends, new friends, maybe even someone who had knocked on the door that way, trying to sell something. Everyone was invited to the table. And when she gave a dinner party, it was always a full house. Anyone who had no family to invite them, or those whose families just wouldn't, you never knew who you would see at Norma's table on Thanksgiving. Everyone from the boringly ordinary to the excessively quirky were represented, and somehow we all fit. It was in Mama Norma's house, at her huge octagonal table that could somehow always fit more people than the time before, that I learned how to take the hands of the people on either side of me while we prayed to the one parent who surely beamed to see so many of the kids gathered together. We didn't call it praying, we called it grace, and that's exactly what it was. A communal table where all were welcome, where everyone belonged. It was heavenly. My friends, that is what I wish for you, to find a place and a way that you too can belong, where you can let go of what you are holding on to and reach for the hands of those who will welcome you, and also reach out and welcome to others. It's what we're called to do. It's what we're made for. You belong in community.